Yo, call me a poster, do I want to be pinned down to a wall? Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Game Skins. Today, and only today, we are here. That's right, with Sonic 06 Revisited. What, the 5th or 6th 3D game that I've revisited in this series. And now we are here with the infamous, the iconic Sonic 06. Also, quick edit, I wanted to mention that I know this is not Project 06. I specifically played OG 06, but I played it on an emulator. Now, I'm not here to tell you what you know. Sonic 06, crazy reputation, crazy potential, all this stuff. I'm here to tell you about how I felt playing it today, my experience with it, and how I think the game really ages to me and what it means to me. And I gotta say, man, I really think I'm a messed up person. I cannot believe I left, you know, playing 2 games in a row, Shadow the Hedgehog, and this being like, huh, those are really fun, but I kind of enjoyed my time with it. When it comes to 06, it's a mix of a few things. Right? I feel like the game is so old now that in my mind, you know, whatever, older games are kind of just like this. And the fact that, like, I guess I know these levels and I know of the game's problems, that when I'm playing it, you know, today, I was like, oh, I didn't think these things bothered me as much. You know, in fact, as I was playing through the game, I realized that, like, this game is just kind of really unpolished and the story is kind of whatever. But when you think about just pure level design and gameplay, the game is pretty fine, you know. And obviously with this game, it was released at an early stage. Like, we know that this game was like a beta build job because they weren't able to release it before the anniversary and all this stuff, you know. But like, for the most part, the things that are in there, I'm like, huh, these systems work. It's just there are things that are just not done in the game, or are just done abruptly, or just are weird. Now, obviously, the best way to go about this game would be going over the main 3 campaigns. So we got Sonic, we got Shadow, and we got Silver. And let's start with our boy Sonic over here. Again, this game, what drives me so crazy about it is the production value, right? You can tell by the CG they were going for something grandiose. They were going for a bit of that Final Fantasy aesthetic, not only in the CG cutscenes, but even in the game's aesthetic. You know, you think of Soliana as an area. You think of even the characters, how they look almost like they're older with the longer quills and the more mature story tones, and even having like a romance concept in the story. They were going for a more maturized version of the series, which makes sense, especially after Shadow the Hedgehog, where, like, obviously that game maybe took it a little too far with the guns, but that game was aiming to grow up the series a little more. Now, when it comes to Sonic's campaign, he is the most traditional, and I'd say probably the most enjoyable campaign. He is the one that basically, like, this feels like a lesser Sonic Adventure in a lot of ways. Like, you have a hub world where there are, you know, random missions and random characters that you talk to. You have the main levels you go to, and then you have your story, but it very much plays like adventure in a lot of ways. Obviously, you know, much less polished, but that's kind of how it goes down, right? With Sonic, you go through all the levels, you go through your Wave Oceans, your Dusty Deserts, your White Acropolis, your Crest City, but all of these levels have like their pluses and minuses, right? And I felt like with Sonic's campaign, even though Sonic felt fine to control, some of these levels really varied. Like, for me, Wave Ocean is just a lovable level to me. You know, I love the vibe of it, I love the music of it, and I just love how it feels to play, right? But then you get to moments where, like, he's sliding and it looks really awkward, or the running in some spots is really weird. The mock section, you know, could be a little finicky, but I was able to beat it in one try, so I didn't think it was that bad. So for the most part, level like Wave Ocean was chill. Then you have Dusty Desert, where you're carrying Elise and you have to press like R2 to like walk on, you know, sand. I didn't even think it was that bad. So you do stuff like that, but then you'll go to like a level like White Acropolis, and the skateboarding in that level is atrocious, and finding your way through it is not fun. And the worst thing this game does is it'll swap you randomly to other characters, right? So you'll randomly swap the Tails in the middle of Sonic's campaign, and just all the not main 3 characters feel awful. Like, there will be moments where you're playing as Tails, or you're playing as Blaze, or you're playing as Rouge, you're playing wherever, and you're like, oh, why do you guys feel like ass? And it's probably because, you know, they weren't fully fleshed out. I mean, I would say Blaze is probably the best one out of those side characters that you get to play as, but for the most part, right, when you're playing through Sonic's campaign, you're going through the main levels, and there's so much, like, there are so many moments I'm like, this is so cool. Like, to this day, I love Crisis City. I think Crisis City from start to finish for me is an enjoyable level, and I think the level design truly shines here, right? And then there's the moments of the game itself, you know, where, you know, sometimes you'll jump to a different platform and it won't detect it properly, or you'll do, you know, some weird animation glitch to some things. Like, there's the moments of the game that interrupt the flow, but for the most part, like, the level design is really good. And it's only when I feel like they start gimmickizing the levels that shit sucks. You know, like I said, in Sonic's campaign, anytime you're on a skateboard, it's just not good. Like, it feels like a much worse version of the older games, right? And then, for example, when you get to a level like aquatic base, you're walking on these like shining ball things and they're frustrating, or when you're carrying Elise, the gimmick isn't fun. Like there's moments where the gimmicks aren't fun, but when you're moment to moment platforming, like I love levels like Kingdom Valley, or even like I really enjoyed Tropical Jungle, or even Radical Train I thought was really fun. You know, you just have to fight some enemies, stop the chain from going, and you're pure platforming. I had a good time, and like that's what drives me crazy about the game. Is like I had a good time playing these levels, but like they're all flawed in a lot of ways. And then you get to like the hub world, right? This game has a hub world that you go through and you talk to NPCs, and the game does do the thing that I really like about Sonic Adventure 1, which is have NPCs and characters with like almost not really storylines, but more like comedic bits that sort of evolve as you play through the game. There's even some side quests you can do. They're not really the best. They boil down to, you know, walk through these rings or fight these enemies or help me find this, and some of them can be frustrating, but some of them can be really silly. And I think the silliness of it for me really made it more enjoyable. You know, I think how funny some of the NPC interactions were, how dumb they were. Really, I don't know, I enjoyed that aspect of it. But when it comes to story, man, I just could not, I don't know what it is, like I could not care less. You know, I feel like the characters are just, they walk for a few moments in the story talking about, and obviously there's the romance aspect between Sonic and Elise, which I think is like a little weird. You know, obviously we've talked about it over the years, but the idea of Sonic having a love interest is cool, but it's just the way they do it here is weird. Like Sonic feels, I don't know how to explain it. In this game, Sonic feels lifeless, right? Where like anytime he sees Elise, he just kind of like smile. Like he doesn't talk, you know. Sonic doesn't feel like he has conversations. Whenever he's talking in a cutscene, it just feels like he's answering things, but he never shows his personality in any of the cutscenes. He kind of feels like grumpy and upset the whole time. He doesn't really show any snark or fun, and he just feels really out of character, which sucks because I think his design in the game is really cool. And obviously Jason Griffith's voice at this point is like getting to that peak Sonic, you know, here and then Unleashed, he's like entering peak Sonic voices, and when he has his serious moments, he sounds really cool in the game, right? But like just a lot of the times in the story and stuff, you just don't feel like you're kind of just walking around in the cutscene, just seeing things play out. And like I said, I still don't even know what the point of the story is. I mean, I know Sonic saves Elise, but they introduce these time travel things. Silver and Shadow pop up, and because you didn't play their stories, you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. You don't get full explanations for anything. It feels like, I know you have to play the 3 campaigns to get it, but it always feels like I'm just missing a really important aspect to understand what's going on here, and it makes the story less enjoyable for it. But again, for the most part, Sonic's campaign plays probably the best of the 3 despite its issues, and it's probably the most streamlined and enjoyable. But you will be shocked when I tell you about Silver's campaign, where I genuinely had a good time with it. I was going into Silver's campaign like, all right, here we go, this is gonna be awful, but I had a good ass time, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe because I feel cool stopping bullets and sending them back to enemies. You know, maybe I had a chat telling me exactly, you know, to slow down on shooting back things so that they do more damage. Maybe I just like running around the Silver. Maybe I just like Silver as a character, but I thought his campaign was fun. I like the telekinesis stuff, you know, where you're like activating platforms to go in front of you. Once you figure out that you could kind of mash, you know, the teleport, the what's called, not teleport, like the float button, instead of holding it, you can get much farther distances. I don't know, I felt you have this like stomp attack that stops a bunch of enemies in front of you, what that you unlock at support. Like I enjoyed playing as Silver, and the biggest flaw the game starts to show though is that you played through every level the same way. You played through, you know, Wave Ocean, Dusty Desert, Crash City, Flame Core, Radical Train, and you know, they just play like variants. And oh my god, I didn't even get to talk about how much I don't like Flame Core as a level. Oh my god, Flame Core is probably my least favorite level in the game when I get to it, just because of that one section where like everything is dark and you have to light up the path. You have to do that in each campaign. I genuinely think for me that's like the least enjoyable level in the game. I know some people were telling me, dude, are you crazy? Silver's Dusty Desert level is awful, where you have to get these like balls into these holes, but I was, I guess, lucky, and it only took me a few tries. It was not that bad. And in fact, like one of the only side characters you get to play as in Silver's campaign is Blaze, and she's one of the most enjoyable to play as. She has like a double jump, she like runs really fast, she has a good flash, she has a good attack. Like she's enjoyable, and that's what shocked me the most is like, again, when you get to stuff like the hub world or certain areas in in the levels, like things don't feel complete. Like there's random boxes everywhere. Things aren't explained to you, telegraphed really what you have to do. You know, you'll fall in random spots, you know, that don't make sense. Some of the level design is not made clear, especially with Silver, but moment to moment gameplay, I enjoyed it, especially obviously, you know, if you consider speeding it up, right? Like, you know, if he was a bit faster, obviously you got a game like Project 06, which makes all of this incredibly more fun if you were to do it there, but we're not talking about Project 06 today. But for the most part, like, I liked playing as Silver. Maybe I'm fucked up, maybe I'm messed up, but I enjoyed it. But then again, you go to stuff like the hub world where it feels kind of empty. You have some side missions, it's the same thing, and then you have the story, and oh, I feel like Silver's story is way more convoluted. I don't know what the fuck is going on in Silver's story. Blaze is there, but she feels like she just shows up randomly whenever. I understand he wants to stop Sonic and he's manipulated, and it's like there's the Iblis trigger, and then they introduce time travel, and they introduce paradox time traveling where it causes like I don't like rationalizing how time travel works in my head. It breaks my brain. I understand there's probably a logical explanation to it, but a lot of the game just doesn't work. You know, Silver and Shadow fight, and that fight, you know, goes all right. You know, it's much more fun when you're in Shadow's, when you're in Silver's feet, you know, and you get to just toss away Sonic, you get to toss away Shadow, because when you fight them as those characters against Silver, you have an awful time. You know, I don't gotta tell you about that. It's no use. It kills you. And like I said, besides some frustrating bosses and then some frustrating level moments, like for the most part, I was like enjoying my time playing Silver's story, and I kind of just got through it. I was like, all right, cool. That, I mean, Blaze dies at the end, sure, and I'm sure there's more to come, but that happens. And then we have Shadow's story, which I think is probably the best one, if I'm being frankly honest with you, because Shadow acts like the most in character in this game. He is the most serious he's ever been. You know, I feel like this game is so much cooler because, like, you can tell he's, you know, done with his whole past, you know, dealing with his past, and he's moved on. He's working actually for Gun, which I think is a really cool concept. You know, he's just kind of getting by his day, working on his life. And then you have the Mephiles plotline, where Mephiles is an altered version of Shadow because Shadow sealed him in the past and he took his form. I don't really want to get into the logistics of it, but I thought Mephiles' fights against Shadow were really cool. I thought Shadow's levels were pretty dope. His combat is obviously, you know, a bit button mashy, you know, just smashing A. Sometimes you get into these vehicles, obviously continued from Shadow the Hedgehog, but they never feel like you have to use them. There's sometimes where they're required, but even then when they're required, it's like they kind of go quickly, and they're not that bad, but they're not that great either. And like I said, it's when the levels get into these gimmicks that I'm like, this is the weakest part, because moment to moment gameplay as Shadow, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it was fun, it was enjoyable. I wish things were faster. I wish there were more attack options, but like, it really is cool what they managed to do here with Shadow. But also at this point, I'm on my third run of all these same levels in different variations, and I'm like, oh my god, bro, just stop it. And I wish there were some different levels, man. And like, it almost in my head reminded me of Heroes, where I'm like, dude, this concept of having to redo the same levels as different characters is fucking bewildering. And in Shadow's campaign, you get to play as Rouge and sometimes Omega, and Rouge is kind of enjoyable because you kind of just break the level. I mean, there's a level where I just straight up like flew through it with Rouge, and there's levels with Omega, and Omega just kind of, you know, you shoot some bullets, you walk through, and it's done. But like I said, story consistency, Shadow, I think, nails it the most. I think the levels are probably, you know, some of the most enjoyable in Shadows, I say, except when you get in a vehicle, don't do that. And the hub world, again, suffers from the same thing, where it's kind of just like generic. You know, you didn't really tell me where to go. The characters aren't really interesting in there, and it is what it is when it comes to Shadow's open world. But for the level design, it's pretty much just Sonic again. And then there is the end of the world, which is the campaign, the final campaign you get for finishing all three storylines. The world is about to end, and Sonic is dead because Mephiles killed him, because why not? And yeah, for the most part, this is one level and one boss fight. The level idea is really cool. Here you play as every character sort of going through a level to get a Chaos Emerald, and it's a very shortened version of a level. Some of them are less fun than others. You know, I think Silver's is the least enjoyable, but I think for the most part, you know, Shadows is pretty enjoyable, Blaze is pretty enjoyable. It's an excuse to play as all the characters in the game, which again, conceptually I thought was really cool, but I feel like obviously the game was not ready to handle having all these side characters playable in some ways. You know, they just feel unpolished, they just feel like worse versions of the main three, and I just feel like it should have never been scene in the game at all. But once you've done all these mini levels and you've gotten all the Chaos Emeralds, you get into the Super Sonic, Super Shadow, Super Silver fight, which music-wise, fantastic. I didn't even get to the music of the game. You guys already know. I mean, the music in this game is incredible. What they do with stuff like Kingdom Valley is an incredible song. White Acropolis, Crisis City is a beautiful track. Like I love Aquatic Base. I love Dreams of an Absolution. His world, like music, thematically, and everything, just so fucking good. They nailed it. They understood the assignment, and it's such a masterful soundtrack in a lot of ways. But back to the super fight here. This fight sucks. I'm gonna be frankly honest with you. This fight sucks. You have to swap between the main 3 hedgehogs, and you have to, you know, stop you have to know that you gotta swap to Silver to stop his bullets, and when he's shooting a laser, that's when you shoot him back. Then you gotta swap to another character to regen its rings, and you have to boost into him as Sonic, and then you have to swap to Shadow, and you use Chaos Spears. Like, the boss is just awfully telegraphed. I feel like maybe phase 2 of Solaris is a little more bearable and a little more enjoyable, because that's when you get to more regular attacks you can do, but it's still just like a very lame Supersonic fight when a lot of them are much more active and much more fun. But alas, you defeat Solaris, you save the world, the flame is sealed, and basically what happens is the timeline resets. Like, those events never happen, but Sonic is aware of them, I believe, and that's pretty much it. But that's the story of Sonic 06, the game and the world and everything. So to conclude, right, like I said, I thought I was gonna play this and suffer and feel miserable, but I just kind of felt like that was fun. I enjoyed some of the levels. I wish they weren't as repetitive. I wish they weren't as gimmicks, and I wish the hub world was a little more interesting. But for the most part, I was able to get through the game, be like, huh, that was fine. And as always, when it comes to 06, like, the ambition is there. The level design is there. I could only imagine if this game was done, this would have been like, I feel like a 9 out of 10. Right, I think besides the story maybe being a little convoluted regardless of if it was done or not, I think this game gameplay-wise would have been phenomenal. And I want to revisit, and we're about to with having Shadow Generations. I want to have Shadow back in the spotlight. I want to have Silver back in the spotlight. Hopefully we get Silver's time to reshine again. But for the most part, I enjoyed this journey and I had a good time with it. So guys, let me know what you think about Sonic 06. Make sure to follow your boy. Make sure to subscribe. And of course, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.